Welcome to Recruitment Rehab, the podcast for your recruitment confessions. Yes, we'll talk about what makes a great recruiter, a great recruitment business, and the secrets behind the success of our various guests. But we're also here to unpack why the industry has such a stellar reputation. You know, like being ranked just above traffic wardens and just below estate agents in the public's hearts. Each episode, we're going to be joined by guests from across the recruitment spectrum to share war stories, confess their past sins, and even maybe admit to being the reason that someone was sworn off recruiters forever. It's part therapy, part revelation, and entirely more honest than your average job spec. This is Recruitment Rehab. Let's get stuck in. Today's guest is proof that you don't need years in recruitment to make an impact. When he launched CMR Jobs in February 2024, he'd never worked a day in the industry. But since then, he's built a team of 4, secured investment, and created a thriving community with events and a buzzing WhatsApp group. He's on track to place 100 people by the end of 2025, has been nominated as best supplier to the contracting industry, and all of this while still managing to rarely miss a bedtime with the kids. Josh, welcome to Recruitment Rehab.
Thank you for having me on, Adam.
We'll get straight into it. So let's start at the beginning then. Obviously, just done your intro, but tell us about how you got into recruitment, your journey, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so as you said, I'd never worked a day in recruitment in my life before starting the recruitment agency. And it all came about really. So I was working at a software company. We were selling software to the umbrella market. And for a number of different reasons, I decided that I wanted a new challenge. And I was actually considering getting a job in the umbrella industry. So I spoke to 2 or 3 recruiters and trying to find out what was out there and just trying to get a bit of a gauge on the job market in the umbrella industry. And quite quickly, I realized I wasn't having a very good or enjoyable experience. The roles they were talking to me just weren't very interesting. They seemed quite limited in terms of the number of clients that they had access to. And I just remember thinking like, I know nothing about recruitment, but I know the umbrella market, probably better than a lot of people. I could definitely do a better job at that. And I gave it a lot of thought and I was thinking, I've probably done recruitment like accidentally over the years, because a lot of times we'd get umbrellas and clients ringing and saying, oh, we're thinking about hiring this guy. Do you know what he's like? Or do you know what she's like? Do you know much about her? Or Josh, we're thinking about hiring for this role. Do you know anyone that would be interested? And I'd introduce people, just out the kindness of my heart and, try and help clients and candidates out. So I'd done it and I knew the market intricately and I'd seen firsthand just how poorly the market was being serviced. So I thought there's an opening there for someone to do it better. And then credit to my former chief exec. I told him that I was leaving, John Whelan, and I said, I think I'm going to set up a recruitment agency. Within 24 hours, he'd emailed all of our clients, there's about 70, 80 of them, and said, Josh is leaving, but don't worry, he'll still be in the market. He's setting up a recruitment agency. And on the back of that, I got roles on and I've not really stopped or looked back since. So yeah, a bit of a whirlwind. That's how I fell into it.
Unique story.
Yeah.
So you were selling software into payroll and umbrella companies, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the recruitment agent that was trying to help you find a job within one of these umbrella companies, obviously really poor service, and you probably know I'm going to go on my own. Yeah, so what type of job were you going to look for within these umbrella and payroll companies?
I was looking for a commercial role. Right. So I was looking to transition from a sales director in software to sales director in umbrella. In hindsight, I probably had the man management and the sales leadership skills, but I didn't have the network to sell to. So probably if a candidate came to me now, I'd probably give them that sort of feedback that, yeah, you're a great sales director in software selling to umbrellas, but you don't know the recruitment market like you probably should do to be a sales director. So yeah, that was where I was and what I was looking for.
So what nuances of recruitment have you had to learn?
Everything. And the last 6 months have been a real steep learning curve for us, because the first 9 months of trading, it was just me. Initially in my spare bedroom, and then our third child moved into that and I got kicked into the garage that was converted to an office. Then at the start of this year, we hired our first proper recruiter. So Jake joined the team. And as soon as Jake came into the organization and the questions he was asking and the expectations that he had from a recruitment agency, I was quite honest with him. I was sort of making up the answers as I went along, because it had been me with a good network and a great understanding of what candidates there were and what the market was like. But to work with somebody else, I really had to up the game in terms of the metrics that we analysed and, how we operated as an organisation. We then brought Luke in as a second recruiter and ultimately Jade. That's all happened in the last 6 months. And as every single person's came in, they're all better recruiters than me, and that was intentional. So they are raising the bar at CMR in terms of how we operate and what we do. So I learned a heck of a lot from those kind of people. And then obviously, as we've spoken about prior to the record, we've taken external investment recently from an experienced recruiter. So again, that's just raised the bar in terms of expectations from Ian. So
what were the biggest differences for you going into a job in recruitment compared to like selling software?
The pace of recruitment, which is one of the things I love about it. I had a chat this morning with one of our guys and said a phone call can change your month, if not your year. So in software sales, it was quite a long procurement cycle. You'd speak to people, you'd be doing multiple demos, there'd be existing contracts that they've got to get out of. And if it was a decent sized contract, it's 3 to 12 months. As you know, in recruitment, you can have a phone call and get them placed within a week, if not quicker, if you've got the right clients and the right candidates. So the pace is the real difference.
Yeah. I massively enjoy that as well. Like I came from a contracts recruitment background, so it's amplified. And I couldn't work a market or a role. And I went into software sales after my first recruitment job, and similar to you, like the deal cycles and how long it all took, I couldn't hack it. Like, sort of massively resonate with what you're saying there.
Yeah.
40% of recruiters leave the industry in the first 12 months. Like, what do you think's allowed you to be successful where 40% of people fail?
Great question. Necessity. So one of the things we've not spoken about is another big why and a big reason for setting up CMR. So CMR was set up a month after we'd had our third child. So my wife and I had 3 children in the space of 2 years and 2 months. So that's CM&R, that's the children's initials. So that's the requirement. It had to be a success. So I think a lot of people join recruitment, from what I've seen, thinking it's easy. They hear about all the successes and the trappings of those successes, and they don't realize the sacrifices and the hard work that goes into it. So unless you've got a real reason for why, and then I think that's probably why so many people fail. We hear clients say it when they're interviewing salespeople. They sound great. They're positioning it all well, and they probably could do okay. But could they drive into the office on a rainy Thursday morning when they're behind target, getting the pressure to achieve that target? If they've not got the resilience or the real why, then they're probably not going to succeed in recruitment or sales in general.
You've touched on 2 there already, like that I go for in terms of characteristics and things that I look for when I'm trying to identify a good recruiter. Like what are the key things that you look for when hiring for your team?
Trying to find out as much as possible about the individual, about the human behind like the recruiter. So recruitment, not to do it at this service, a lot of people can do recruitment. As if you go into an agency where there's defined processes, systems, and a market, you can follow those processes and be successful. But you need the traits of a good recruiter. So you need the resilience and you need the motivation in order to be able to be really successful. So whenever I meet anybody, probably 25% of the conversation is focused on how they recruit and what they've done in numbers. The majority of the conversation is focused on them, why, trying to find out as much as I can about their personal life, maybe a bit weirdly so sometimes, but it's really important when you're managing people, but also keeping them motivated and making sure they're going to be a success.
Yeah, you definitely need that strong why. What's your thoughts on intelligence and how important that is to be good at recruitment?
Trying to be careful that I don't offend anyone in our team, because I was going to say something like, I don't think you necessarily, it's probably more emotional intelligence that you need, because again, what we've just said is when we're adding people to our teams, we want to know about the individual, their motivations and their reasons. When we're also qualifying people to join our clients' teams though, you need that emotional intelligence to be able to understand whether there'll be a cultural fit and whether they're going to be as motivated. So you don't have to be book smart. You don't have to do well in university or in school or anything like that, in my opinion. You've just got to be good with people and emotionally intelligent to be a good recruiter.
What about sales ability to influence?
Ability to influence and ability to close and to weed out the people that aren't as necessarily interested. So as we talk through it, there are quite a lot of things that you do need to be a recruiter. But I think first and foremost, it's that person, it's the personality, the motivation and the reason, because all that other stuff can be taught that we spoke about.
100%. And what would you say has been the biggest light bulb moment of your career so far in recruitment specifically?
The biggest light bulb moment, there's been multiple in the last 6 months. So I spoke about bringing on external investment. Every conversation I have with Ian, I have a light bulb moment about just the opportunity to optimize the business, serve clients better, and, provide a better service to candidates. Bringing in the new recruits and even going through that interview process. So obviously we use you guys, and we spoke to a lot of good recruiters, and all of those conversations, you just widen your knowledge of the recruitment market, and you're picking up so many things from people. You're always learning.
And you've clearly done well, like, to be where you are now with no experience setting up last year. But if you could go back to Josh just starting out in 2024 and give him any advice, what would it be?
Probably to grow the team quicker.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's one of my, not regrets, but because we had a good first year, I think we could have done more. I remember at one point being sat there and it was just me, and I had like 13 roles to work. Now, I wouldn't let the guys work more than like 3 or 4. They don't want to work more than like 3 or 4 roles because you can't do it properly if you've got too many roles distracting you. So maybe I was being a bit selfish. Maybe I was I didn't know what I was doing really. But if I'd have had 2 other recruiters with me earlier on, could we have done more and delivered better for clients in the early days?
It's probably fear of the increased overheads as well, and employing someone for the first time. I doubt it was selfishness.
Definitely. But that overhead line, I was talking to someone about it last week. I'm sure you're the same with your business, like every business owner is, just seems to be creeping. And we keep a good control on cost. And one of the best things I ever did early doors was work with a proper accountant who understood recruitment and management accounts from day one, understanding cash flow. And that helped me to be a bit more comfortable as we spent, because I start those calls with my accountants every month and being like, right, when are we going to run out of money? How long have I got before we have to shut up shop? And luckily, they've never said that it's going to be anytime soon in the first 18 months.
My accountant hates me now after I met you, because I just really base it on stuff like you talk
But
about.
it's important, and like, it all comes from learning, like in my general career, always surrounding myself with people that are better than me. Like I said, I've done it in recruitment. I've always done it in my working career, because you learn so much from them.
Yeah.
And one of the things an old chief exec used to say to me was, cash is king. And when you're an employee, you don't really understand it, and you're just sort of a bit blasé to it. But when you're running your own business, cash is king. But like a step further than that, understanding your accounts is so, so important, because again, as every business owner knows, there'll be times when you're sitting on a lot of VAT maybe, or PAYE, and your bank account is overinflated. And if you just purely look at the bank account, I'm easy, I can take it all out, I can go traveling for 2 years. But in reality, how much of that is actually the business's? And then following that, how much of that is actually yours? So yeah, that's probably a really solid thing that I sort of did early doors, just because it felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, certainly for new people getting into running a business, and just the different things that you have to think about that perhaps you don't consider when you're just a high-flying recruiter thinking, I'm going to set up on my own. Yeah. What about, like, as an individual recruiter then, what's the one thing that you do every day that's a non-negotiable that makes you good at what you do?
Pick up the phone. Right. So I think it's a big frustration, not necessarily at the minute, but when I've worked in sales in general, just trying to get people to pick up the phone, hiding behind emails, LinkedIn these days, messages and posts. But picking up the phone, even if you're not speaking to someone about a role, just talking to clients every day. I spend hours of my day just talking rubbish to clients that they enjoy as well, hopefully, but just trying to understand them as a business, because we work with them, or we're going to work with them, understanding where the market's going, doing the same thing with candidates. So getting an understanding from a candidate's perspective where the market's at in terms of where the temporary labour market and the umbrella market is, the job market, are they getting approaches from other recruiters, what kind of packages are on offer. So it just makes me a much more knowledgeable individual, and therefore a better recruiter, by just picking up the phone and having conversations. So yeah, my talk time, we don't monitor that sort of stuff, but if we did, thinking back to my early days of sales, I'd be envious of the talk time that I've got now.
Really?
Maybe we should start recording it, actually.
What's your thoughts on then, because you touched on hiding behind emails and LinkedIn, like what's your thoughts on that as an approach? Do you think there's a place for it?
It's got a place, and every time I bring it up as like a contentious topic in our office, one of the team will send a LinkedIn message and get a top candidate on the hook and end up setting up a call. So in a sales process or in a recruitment process, it's got a place. I'm very much so, like, if I need something, or if I want a conversation, or if I want to know something, just ring someone. It takes 30 seconds, and sometimes you can be really direct and just say, no fluff today, like, I've heard this is happening, what's your take on it? And it just solves a problem that could take 2 hours in 30 seconds. And I think that goes back to, in my early sales career, I worked at a company called UK Fast in Manchester. On the sales team there, they used to lock the emails out of the computers from 10 till 12, I think it was, and 2 till 4. So you had no choice but to be on the phone for like 4 hours a day. So I think it probably comes from that, because that was a really successful, highly profitable business.
So what's contentious about that in your office?
Not everyone's the same. So other good recruiters don't always go to the phone first. And that's okay, because as I said earlier, they're better recruiters than me. Mm-hmm. But maybe that's just I get frustrated by not everyone being exactly the same as me.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And it kind of leads on to the next question. What's one mistake that you see recruiters make day in, day out, or you've heard of recruiters making day in, day out, that you think leads to their downfall?
Complacency. And again, I'm going to constantly reference sales and recruitment, because I do think it's virtually the same thing. Yeah. You're selling, it's a bit crude to say it, but the person's the product. So, but you're still selling. The one thing that I see people do constantly is get complacent. So you have a good month, you have a good day, you have a good week, and you forget the fundamentals and the basics that made you have that good period of time. So yeah, complacency, definitely.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that. It should stay level, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not getting too up, not getting too down, because it can change quickly.
Well, I sort of disagree with that, because I like the highs and lows. Because if you don't enjoy the wins and the successes, then what's the point in doing it? Mm-hmm. So you've got to get a little bit sad and a little bit frustrated when you have the challenges. But yeah, it's an emotional roller coaster, and you've got to ride that roller coaster. Whether this analogy works, you've got to stay on it. It's if you get off and expect it to get better, it's not going to work. You just got to keep going, follow your processes, and everything will be all right.
Yeah. No, I've just worked in offices with people where when they're not billing, it's like they don't want to talk to anyone. Yeah. And when they do a deal, everyone knows about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like a week later, it's dropped out, and you're wondering why you've not said a word.
Yeah.
Obviously ride the roller coaster, but I think, not getting too up, not getting too down.
Yeah. I always remember, again, early on in my sales career, a sales trainer that we had doing some work with us was talking about the best time to make a phone call or to try and make a sale is instantly after you've just done one, because that feeling and chasing that high again drives you to do better or have a better performance. So she was always keen on, like, as soon as you find out about a deal or as soon as something goes well, don't go on your phone and start celebrating and walk off from your desk. Get back on it and keep and use that momentum that you've gained. So probably it comes to that as well, doesn't it? Same sort of thing.
No, that's really interesting advice. I never heard that. I never really considered that, but I can see why that makes sense.
Yeah,
100%. Let's move on to recruitment's reputation then.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many people love to hate recruiters?
Bit of a power trip from people sometimes, isn't it? Like, I remember I was out with my brother-in-law for a few pints the other week, and I was talking to him about work, and he just made a comment. I don't think he meant it, but it really resonated, where he said, we're talking about would he move, would he not? And he went, I'm always getting recruiters messaging me about stuff. And people love to feel like in demand and to feel wanted, and they just feel like because they're getting chased, they've got the power in the situation. So I think that's probably a part of it. I also think it's that ghosting. It's that word that everyone uses in recruitment. The fact candidates do it to us, and they're okay, they're allowed to do it apparently. But when a recruiter does it to a candidate, I think that's why people hate it, because again, they're getting loads of approaches. They think that they're really in demand. They speak to a recruiter. The recruiter probably sells them the dream. Well, that recruiter during that call might realise actually they're no good for this. I'm 15 minutes into selling it to them. So I'll say, send us your CV and I'll put you in front of the client and I'll come back to you and let you know what they say. And then that recruiter doesn't go back to them, even with a courtesy WhatsApp, just a quick message. Mm-hmm. And the recruiters, because they're so motivated and they've probably got so much pressure from their management to deliver, they just chase the things that's going to deliver revenue and results for them. They don't worry about the people that can't, which is a shame. It's not how we do it at CMR, but I think that's a big contributor to why people love to hate recruiters.
Yeah, 100%, that ghosting piece.
Yeah.
The power piece is an interesting one. I'd never considered that, but I think you're right. It's the fact that they're in the position of power, it's getting mithered by recruiters, and they almost see them as like below them a little bit. No, definitely interesting. Would you or can you give any examples of where you potentially contributed to recruitment's negative perception?
Not in terms of ghosting and stuff. I mean, I'm human, so there probably are scenarios where I've had a conversation and not gone back, but I make a conscious effort, me and the team. It's one of the things that we constantly talk about is make sure you let the people that aren't successful or aren't going any further know about it. Just drop my WhatsApp. It's 30 seconds, but it puts their mind at ease. I think the biggest mistake that I've made that has probably contributed to the reputation of recruiters is, and then I'll never forget it, it was in the early days. So I had a bit of a rule during that first year or first 9 months where I'd always try and finish up by like 4:30. My children would be home from preschool and I'd do dinner, bath time, bedtime with them. And then typically I'd start working again at like 7 o'clock on the laptop in my office. And then one evening during that period where I wasn't meant to be working, I got a text off a client where we'd placed the candidate, and the client said, it's not worked out with XYZ, we're going to have to let them go. So instantly I text the candidate and was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear about it. I've heard that you've been let go. Within 30 seconds, my phone was buzzing from both of them. Oh. But what makes it worse is I was lying on my youngest daughter's bedroom floor with my arm through the cot, trying to pat her to sleep, and they were all ringing. And I was like, I can't leave her. Like, she'll wake up, my night will be gone. So I was trying to get her to sleep, getting texts, this, that, and the other. And then, like, when I finally emerged from the room about 45 minutes later, I think I made it last as long as possible so I didn't have to face the music. They'd already had a Teams call. He'd had to deliver the news over the Teams. He was meant to be going to the office the next day. And it ended up just getting really messy because the guy was understandably pissed off. The candidate was. Yeah, the client was okay. The client, we've got a good relationship with them and we still do work with them today, actually. But the candidate was really frustrated. He ended up ghosting and disappearing and taking the laptop. And so probably cost the client a few £100. Thinking about it, I've actually probably spent not the same amount, but I've paid my dues to the client in terms of work that we've done for them since and stuff. So yeah. But it was just one of those situations where you just wanted the world to swallow you up, like, and pretend it hadn't happened.
I don't think that's your fault though. Like, he's told you that they've let him go, right?
No. He said, so rereading the text thousands of times like I have done since, he said, we're going to have to let them go. Right. But because I was half concentrating, I've interpreted that as, he already knows, and he's getting let go. So I'm trying to be a nice guy and trying to maintain the relationships with everybody that we work with, text the candidate and told him. And that's the way that he's found out that he's lost the job 9 months after, or 6 months after starting.
I feel for you a little bit there.
Thank you.
I feel like that, could have been a lot worse. I don't think the client should fall out with you.
No, he was all right.
He should have just let the candidate go first before getting in touch with you.
Well, I think that's probably the flaw there, trying to protect everyone in this. Again, like the relationship I've got with the clients, like I stuck someone on LinkedIn the other day, and I know it's a little bit cringeworthy, but like most of our clients, I consider them mates. Like I WhatsApp all my clients 24/7, or a lot of my clients like 24/7, evenings and weekends, and talk about 90% non-work related stuff. So I think it was probably just a natural thing for him to do. Yeah. They might have had an internal meeting that day and he was just giving me the heads up and letting me know. So in a typical relationship with the recruiter, maybe he would have just emailed them or called them the next day. So
these relationships have been established long before you started CMR?
Yeah, probably 50% of the clients that we work with, I've worked with since like 2017 when I started at the software company. There was also, though, a lot that we never worked with at My Digital that for whatever reason didn't use the software. So we have expanded into different clients, but a lot are from my old career, yeah.
Okay. What do you do differently now to when you started?
Great question. I don't make it home for as many bedtimes as I used to. No, that's not fair. I make it home for probably as many bedtimes, but bath and dinner seem to be, not getting as much attention as they used to. So, I think I work harder now than I did then. I didn't not work hard then. I was working as much as possible then. But the dynamics of the business have just changed massively. Like sometimes I have to stop and think about like how far the business has come. So this time last year, it was me with the home office, then I was probably in my spare bedroom. It was me doing it constantly and working on the business. Now there's 4 of us, there's an external investor, so the dynamics of the organisation have changed massively. The pressure is the same but different, and you'll appreciate this as a growing agency, because now we've got the people that work for us that are all dependent on the business being a success in order for them to have the successes and the trappings that they want. So the dynamics have definitely changed from this time last year.
What about how you carry out like your recruitment process and your day to day? Has anything changed there?
Our recruitment process is miles better because it's a proper recruitment process now. So it's the kind of process, and this is intentional, where as we continue to grow the team over the next 12 months, anybody can come in, and there's a defined recruitment process, account management, business development process. So all the processes are now defined so that if you came into the office to work for a day, you could work the CMR way. And that's intentional, because I do think a part of the reason that we had success in the early days was because of the way that I did it, which goes against what I just said. But so I do want to keep a lot of the ways that we used to operate in the core like DNA of CMR and how we do things moving forward.
So have you got all your processes like documented?
Yes and no. It's we're still in the process. Yeah. I've got them physically written down.
Yeah.
Anyone that starts, so Jake leads the delivery at CMR and leads all the actual sourcing and placing of candidates. He will take the individuals through it, and then typically I'll get them to repeat it or define it or write it for me. We're not in a situation yet where we've got a OneDrive file with everything on it. We'll get there, but we're not that business yet, because that's the sort of stuff that I always think big businesses do. So I don't think we're there yet, but there's definitely a place for it, and we will do it. Yeah,
no, that's kind of advice that I've had off a few business owners of recruitment agencies much bigger than us. Like, you know, you need to run your business now like it's a much bigger agency, and you need to have like a playbook of sorts of all your processes so that you can just drop anyone into your business. And like you said, you could come to the business for the day and know the CMR way.
I think the thing, and we spoke about this last week, like time management isn't my strongest point. No. So that to-do list, I think I ran you through it to make the point last week. Probably 90% of that is still on there because I still, like at heart, I'm still a salesman. Like, and I'll look at my to-do list and, you know, right, there's placements, there's interviews that need sorting, and I always do that sort of stuff first. The running of a business stuff wrongly never gets the right amount of attention. But yeah, that's part of the reason for bringing Ian into the business, is because he's going to get me by the scruff of the neck and make all that stuff happen. So
yeah. It is tough as a business owner, like determining how much of your time you should spend on sales, on operations, on making your team better. Like, because you can't outsource everything, can you? But it's one of them, like, if you did outsource something, could you not be spending more time making more money? Because this is such a tough horse to dry, I find.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also like letting go and like giving control to people, because when we both started in that first year, you're doing everything, and you're good at it. You're getting good at everything, and you understand everything, importantly. So then as you start to grow, if you're employing multiple people and you're like the pinch point for so many different parts of the business, it's going to stunt your growth. So you've just got to sort of drop your ego, don't let your pride get in the way, and give it to people that are better than you at stuff. So that's the whole point, and I keep mentioning him, but with Jake, like letting Jake be the head of delivery, I want all that kind of stuff to be what Jake takes care of as the business scales, and he is doing, and he will continue to do it. So it's about getting out of the way, I think, but it's harder.
Yeah, that's good advice. Going back to recruiters' reputation, so if you could change one thing about the industry overnight, what would it be?
I mean, the first time I refer to my notes, I'm sure if I had to change one thing about recruitment, it'd be that misconception. I think we sort of touched on it maybe earlier about everyone thinks recruiters are just in it for the cash. So everyone thinks that the only reason anyone gets into recruitment or sets up recruitment is for making money. And I don't think that's true. Some of the best recruiters I've dealt with over the years is when we were a hiring manager, when I was a hiring manager, or even now when I've done interviews. Some of the best recruiters are those that genuinely care about the people and genuinely care about their clients and the market that they work in. So people that care and do the right thing tend to be the best billers anyway, like and make the most money. But if you just focus on the money, you'll make short-term decisions that are detrimental long-term, and you're never going to be a consistent or a good recruiter.
That kind of ties into what I was going to ask you then. What do you think is the biggest misconception of recruiters?
Yeah, it's that everybody's in it for cash. So they think that everybody that works in recruitment purely does it for cash, and I just don't think that's the case.
So what do you think is the main reason people get into recruitment for?
It's a people business. Like, I know for me, like, I think one of the things that probably annoys my wife the most is like how talkative I am. And when we go on holiday, like I'll have 2 pints in the bar and I'll be trying to talk to people. Like I just love speaking to people and learning about their journeys and like what they've done in their life leading up to this point. And recruitment gives you such a good opportunity to do that, from speaking to candidates to clients, like I spoke about earlier. Speak to so many different people on a daily basis. And there's no better feeling, in my opinion, than speaking to that candidate that is working somewhere. It's not working out for whatever reason. When you start talking to them about how that's impacting their personal life and the real stress and shit that they're going through because of a bad job. And then when you get them that role and you speak to them, obviously when they get offered, but like 6-9 months into that role, and they're just loving life and like maybe a bit egotistical, but like you made that happen. Like you're the one that matched up the client and the candidate and like nurtured them through the process and made it happen. So for me, if that doesn't give you the buzz, then it's not for you, because you'll do that at times when the money won't be that good. There'll be really low fees, or you might have, as my guys would sit here and tell you, you might have an owner who's done a deal with a client, you know, for like a one-off fee that's not great. Like, so if you don't get that buzz from the human element, then you shouldn't be in recruitment.
Yeah, it's interesting that, because I was going to play devil's advocate there, because when people ask me or say to me, I want to work in recruitment for, you know, because I'm a people person, I'm like, there's so many industries that you could work in where you get to deal with people day in, day out that are so much easier and so much less stressful than recruitment. So I'd recommend that you do a different job. You've got to have a stronger why than that. But I suppose you touched on like the buzz of effectively like changing someone's life. You know, you are like, it's a huge part of your life, isn't it, working?
And there'll be people that'll be sat there, like when I talked about it earlier, where they're probably getting approaches from recruiters all the time, and like if they listen to this and hear us going like, oh, I know that feeling of changing someone's life, they'll be like, you know, wind your neck in, like you don't change people's lives, but you do. Like our tagline still, I think, and from early on, is about like improving people's careers. And if you improve a career, the likelihood is you improve someone's life. Like there's no getting away from it. Like we're not the ones that invented that. It's just the way that it is. Like, and if that excitement and that buzz doesn't do it for you, then you, like I say, you'll end up chasing bad decisions, making immoral and poor decisions because of the cash. And then 6, 9, 12 months later, your reputation will be one where people just don't want to work with you. I've seen it even in our industry, where there's teams and agencies that just chase the cash. And some of the stuff that they do is, you know, taking from clients and all that stuff, purely because they're only in it for the cash.
So what advice would you give to somebody who's considering using a recruiter about what recruiter they should work with?
Probably a bit of a theme throughout everything that I'm saying. Like, speak to someone that you get on with. Like, doing business, doing anything in life is miles easier if you get on with the individual. So find someone, and I know it's hard to find out, how do you know if you like them or not, but have a conversation with them and try and find out the individual that you're talking to. And there's also got to be an element, they've got to be an expert in the market, because they've got to have like a full visibility across the market, even if the clients they're not working with, because they've got to understand where your salary range should be, you know, all the working locations, all that kind of jazz, the detail of recruitment. If they don't know the market, they won't know that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, do you think understanding of the market is crucial, or do you think you can still be a good recruiter just winging the market?
You get lucky and you can be perceived as a good recruiter by slinging a CV over, and it just so happens to be a cultural and everything else fit. But yeah, you've got to know the market intricately. You've got to know your clients intricately, because you keep saying it, the people that run these clients are humans and the hiring managers are humans. If you don't know everything about that human and what makes them tick inside, outside of work, how can you match them up with another human? Like, it sounds a little bit like a dating app or something there, but like, you've got to understand the individuals that you're working with, both candidates and clients. And there's times where, like, you know, you see a CV on a job board, or you get someone reach out to you, and on paper you're like, oh, they are perfect for this client, they're going to love him. You have a 5-minute conversation with them and you just know there's going to be too many clashes from a cultural perspective, so you might sling it over and just explain all of that. But if you don't give that additional context, or if it's not a cultural fit, it'll never work. Like, yeah, going back to when we hire, finding out about the person is more important than their ability when bringing people into CMR, and that's the same with clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's great advice. I want to move on to some, let's say, contentious topics, the stuff that gets people going in the comments on LinkedIn. So what's your take on the whole remote versus hybrid versus on-site debate?
It's funny, right? Because when I was an employee, let me work remote, I'll be just as productive remote, and there is a case for it. Now I run a business, like, for multiple reasons. So the main reason, I want everyone in the office, right? And if I had my own way, we'd be in the office 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I want that buzz of being around people. Again, like I want to be around individuals. I want to see them succeed. I want to see them, go through challenges and support them. And they do the same with me and each other. So there's that like collaboration that happens. And again, everyone watching this, whether they admit it or not, will have been in a situation where they've been remote or not sat next to someone. You try and get something resolved. They don't answer the phone and it goes through Teams or email or whatever. And it takes time. And that time is opportunity in business, and it's frustrating as anything for the people involved in that situation. If someone sat across the desk from you like this, you just ask them straight away. Within 30 seconds, you've got a resolution. Like so, and it's that like whole thing, like the opportunity cost from being remote. I know it happens to me, and I'm trying to get better at it. Where I've got something that I think I need an answer on instantly, whether I do or not is a different question. I try and ring one of the guys. They're probably busy working. Don't answer the phone. And then you're just getting really frustrated. I'm like, if they're in the office, even if you're on the phone now, I'd be trying to like mime to them and ask the question. So yeah, I get, and I want to give people flexibility, and we do hybrid at the moment, but yeah, that's my take on it now. So I probably see where all my old bosses were coming from when I used to ask for 5 days fully remote.
So what do you think is a sweet spot then?
I think it's 3-2 for me.
3-2.
I think, and if I had my choice, it'd be 3 days in the office, 2 remote. Mm-hmm. My guys watching this now, we do 4 in the office and 1 remote currently. But I think mixed in with that is all about like maturity and flexibility. So again, if my team are watching this, we don't operate like everyone's got to be in at 9 a.m. and I want the teams to be switched on, and I'll be looking for who's got green and who's got a cross on Teams at 9, and like go and take an out, do whatever you want, like be in the office. Like we'll be there for core hours together. And in our business, and again in sales, if you're hitting target and you're doing well to an extent, I don't really care. But when you're not hitting target, when you're not doing well, you start looking at people's metrics and how much work are they putting in, and you start thinking, hang on, they've been leaving the office at 2 o'clock. So that it just paints that wider picture. So it's just being grown-ups about it, in my opinion. I think the extreme of 8:30 in the office till 5:30 with a 30-minute lunch break is, I used to work in an accountancy practice that operated that, and they were really strict about that lunch break as well. I think those days are long gone, but I don't know the answer. I don't think anyone does, and I still think we're finding our way post-COVID to what the working day should look like.
Can you ever see yourself hiring a trainee?
Is this you trying to pitch?
Yeah, I know this sounds like I'm trying to get some business here.
Yeah, it is a CV.
But I was just wondering how you think that your take on that would possibly change if it was a trainee, or do you not think it would?
I think it would. And I think I'd ask them to be in the office more, but for their benefit.
Yeah.
And I'd probably, if we did bring a trainee in, I'd probably ask them to be in the office more. I'd also ask the seniors to be in the office more, and I'd go in the office because that individual is probably getting, if they did 3 days 2 days at home, they're getting a much less percentage. I can't do the maths without embarrassing myself. They're getting less exposure to the experience and the quality in the business. So, you know what it's like. I remember during COVID, how old was I in COVID? Probably 28, 29. I bought an Xbox the first day we got put into lockdown, right? I sold it 8 months later when I had a kid, but I bought an Xbox. So that just goes to the reason for why people are probably so paranoid about it. Because I was sat there a lot of the time playing on FIFA whilst the laptop open and whilst doing calls and texts and stuff. But I was playing FIFA a lot. I'm sure, I don't know if you were, you're smiling like you did as well. Yeah,
potentially. I'm asking the questions here. Okay, no, great. And what about LinkedIn then? Yeah. What's your thoughts on how LinkedIn's used these days and some of the stuff that you see on LinkedIn?
It's top, isn't it? Like you and I are both big advocates of it, and it just, again, like a theme throughout this conversation, it humanizes people. Like, so back in the day when I was first starting in sales, and probably you'd see an email address, or you'd find someone's website with a very corporate looking photo of a chief exec, and as a junior sales guy, you'd be like, oh my, that guy's never going to want to speak to someone like me. Now you have chief execs that are posting themselves on there, getting pies thrown in the face, and there's a client of ours that did that, like getting pies thrown in the face. He's doing marathons, like here's me and my wife and kids at the beach, like just makes everybody seem so much more personable and nicer to do business with. So there's a lot of dinosaurs out there that will complain and it's turning into Facebook and all that, but if you don't like it, don't go on it. That's like, it's not difficult, is it? So no, I love it. I'm a big advocate of it. We do a lot of content on it, probably too much sometimes, but always putting stuff out there. And the thing that makes me smile, like, don't get me wrong, we do well, But I meet people all the time and they're like, oh, looks like you're smashing it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it makes you smile. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, what, I'm getting a lot of likes, or like, how is this? There's never really a correlation between the volume of stuff you do on LinkedIn and the success of the business. That being said, we do get a lot of candidates and clients reaching out direct. Typically, they'll never admit it's because of a post, but it's always like a bit of a coincidence that you put a post on a certain topic and a client will reach out, or you put a post on about a role. We do that quite regularly, and you'll get 4 or 5 profile views from people that would be appropriate for it, a message or two. So it does, for the dinosaurs out there, it does translate into revenue.
It's funny, I've literally just had a text of a client asking about a picture of Guinness I put on the other day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I fully agree with everything you said. I think it's that humanizing bit that you mentioned, like, you know, you might be a CEO of a massive business, you might be the MD of a 300-person recruitment business, but you still go home and watch Netflix in the evening. Do you know what I mean? We are all the same. We are all just people. And it helps kind of lose that fear, and it's just a bit more authenticity, isn't it? Whereas definitely. if you don't have that human side to it, it's just not quite the same.
It just makes it funner, doesn't it? Like, life's shit enough, so you might as well have a bit of fun when you go to work. Like, maybe that's not the right way of putting it on, but like, life's hard enough. But like, so if you, again, an old chief exec said to me, what's the point in going to work if you can't enjoy yourself? And I remember at the time thinking, what? It's to make money, it's to make a business a success. But like, it's definitely something that I try, like a bit of an ethos that I try and have in our business now, because you spend so much of your life working, you've got to have a laugh. Like, you've got to have fun. Otherwise, life just be boring, wouldn't it? So 100%. The LinkedIn and the social stuff, I think, feeds on from that as well. And it's just people putting their personalities across. And yeah, there'll be people that will disagree with this because they just want to get their own views up and their own clicks, but it's just a game, isn't it, that everyone plays. So
I agree. So just to round out then, last couple of questions, like, how has success changed for you over time, or your idea of success?
Great question. I think, without going too deep into it, like, I think the kids changed massively your perception of success. So all the material things that I might once have considered, meaning success, don't anymore. Don't get me wrong, I still aspire to be able to have those sort of things as well. But for me, success now is literally seeing my kids grow up and physically being there a lot of the time for them growing up, which running the business and the business being successful allows me to do. So yeah, that's success for me now. I think, long term, what does it mean? The kids never having to work a day in their life, which is at this point in the business so far away and so unachievable, but that's one of my long-term goals. They will. And even if we got into a situation, I wouldn't tell them that they didn't have to, because I wanted to get out there and work, but just securing the future for the family, really.
Yeah. No, that's really nice. And what's next for CMR then? What does success look like for CMR specifically in the next 6-12 months?
Good question. Keeping Ian happy is the new thing. Now we're taking external investment on. I'm making him out to be some monster. No, he's not. I think and I said this to everyone when they come in, like the non-tangible thing that is CMR, that's the business, that existing and that providing for everybody that relies on it. So all the people that work there, the clients that rely on it, the candidates, me and my family, CMR being there and being a success is a success, which is an obvious thing to say, but like making sure that it doesn't disappear and doesn't become one of those statistics that it fails after 2 years.
Yeah, no, I think that's a nice place to finish, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me on. It's good to see the offices finally as well, after seeing it on LinkedIn so much.
Yeah.